The message box that is created within Acrobat can be customized in a wide variety of ways, and I want to show you what those are, as I think you may want to customize the message box beyond the default look that it has. So I have a button on this page, and this is the messagebox.pdf page. And I'm not going to focus on the button or the form field itself. What we're going to focus on is the alert message box that pops up when I click the button. So first of all, I have to get an alert popping up, an alert triggering this. So I'm going to choose mouse up, choose run a JavaScript, and then I will plug it in. And I just had those pre-chosen. So in order to pop up an alert, we go app.alert, parentheses, semicolon. And inside here, we plug in what we want to say. And I'll make it short and sweet this time. So I'll click OK, click Close. There is my message box. I'll go out here, and you can see I did get a message box triggered from the button. Now, within this message box, there are some properties that we can modify. And we have been modifying the actual text within this message box, but we can also add some information up here within the message box. We can change the icons that are showing up within this area, and I can change what buttons show down here. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll click OK, and that goes away. Now what I'm going to do is add another feature to this area. And let me show you within the Tools area. I haven't really shown you this, and I don't purposely because it's easy to cause some problems. But within the JavaScript panel, notice I have this option, Edit All JavaScripts. And if I click on that, what that does is pop up an XML document, and notice it says do not edit the XML tags. These items here with angle brackets on each side are XML tags, but you can see that I actually have my information from the JavaScript editor within this area. So it's possible to edit right here. And what I'm going to do is put a comma and add the number 3. Since this is fairly simple, we will do it right here. Now notice we have some additional information in here. It says belongs to Acroform, the button, and notice we also have something we recognize, the mouse up event. So this is actually storing the information that we choose within that interface where we choose the event and the trigger. So I just modified the JavaScript here, and I'll click OK. You just have to be much more careful when you're doing it there. So I'll click the hand, click on the message box, and notice what happened. I get an eye icon. So when I plug in just a comma and a number, what I do is get different icons that are available. And an error message, the big red X that you've been looking at, is the default, and that represents the number 0. So there's also 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you wonder what those are, you can always plug them in. So I'll do the same thing. That was 3. And 3 is a little I representing information. So I'll pop up a number 1 instead, and it's a caution. So 0 is the error, the big red one with the X in it. 1 is a caution. Let's take a look at 2. And 2 is the one that I tend to find is a bit handy to have along with that information. So we'll click the message box and take a look at that. It shows a question. So I'm controlling this icon here, and if I use the number 4, it would be blank. So that second number will look at that JavaScript. I'll go up here again so it's a little cleaner. You can see what I mean by it being a lot cleaner to see what your code is. But this second piece is the icon being displayed within that alert piece. Now there is another third piece that you can add. Let's put a comma 3 and we'll click OK. Click close. I'll go back to the hand and take a look at that. The number 3 pops up 3 buttons. Yes, no, and cancel. So that allows us to have access to whatever the user choosing. We can perform different types of scripts based on that. So that is known as the type, and that particular feature has a few different options to it. So you have 4 different options. So 0, which is the single OK. We have a number 1, which says OK and cancel. So instead of yes and no, it would just say OK. Yes, no, and cancel is number 3. And we also have a yes, no, which is a number 2. So let's take a look at that. I'll go out here, and instead of number 3, let's do a 2. Move back over to the hand, and you can see I have a yes and no. So now, based on this information, I can determine which of these buttons the user chose, and based on that information, I can run different code. So this message box piece, or the app.alert command, has ways to customize it. So let's look at another option. Now, whether I choose yes or no right now makes no difference because I haven't coded anything for it. So what I'm going to do is customize this button just a little bit further. So I know that I have the message for the user, I have the icon, and I have the type of buttons that I want. So the last piece, and I'll put this after the 2, and I'll add a comma, is something known as C title. And I'm going to say, you have added a title. Now, because we're using C title and we're defining a value for it, we need the colon here, but we also need the curly brackets. So we will need to add curly brackets anytime you need to use this type of feature where there's a colon in there, so that Acrobat understands you're giving it different pieces of content. So let's pop that one up and see what happens. Now, I definitely have an error within this piece somewhere in my code, and I'll have to figure that one out. Now, I do have this within this area, so those two match. Quite often, it's brackets that are a problem, and this says invalid object initializer. So it looks to me like I am not able to initialize or move into this piece. So my C title must have some kind of an error within it. So I'll have to take a look at that. Now, in looking this over, notice that I have C title with a colon here, but none of my other options have that type of a setup. And that is the problem with this script. So if I put in the curly brackets to handle the properties and values here of the specific message box, then what I need to do is make sure each piece has that same feature. So the initial piece is known as C message, MSG. There we go. So that is the first piece. The second piece to control the icon is known as N icon, colon, and the last one that we have to plug in, this one is N type, colon. So that should take care of my problem, provided I've set this up correctly. So here is CMSG. So that's the message for the user. Then I have a comma, and I plug in N icon, which is number 2 as the value. And N type is number 2, C title. So you can see I'm just putting in the names of these various items. So let's see if I click OK, what happens. And I'll go back to the hand. I will click the message box, and you can see there's my hi. Here's my icon. I added a title to the message box, and I now have a yes and a no button, and they are not coded for anything, so whichever one I choose won't make any difference right now. But I have drastically changed the look of this message box from that original default view with just an error, a big red X, and a single OK. So that is how you can control the properties of a message box, or the message box that pops up when you use app.alert. It's up to you if you want to use these various options that are available to you, and I'll go back out here, such as C message, N icon, N type, or C title. That's completely up to you, but those are some of the ways that you can customize the look of the message box that pops up for the alerts within your form.